with our EBITDA margin at 52%, up from 45% in 2018. This was driven by higher service revenues and lower cash expenses. PLDT's telco core income, excluding gains from asset sales and the impact of Voyager, rose 13% to 27.1 billion pesos, representing an increase of 3 billion pesos from 2018. And consistent with our dividend policy, we paid dividends amounting to 75 pesos per share, or a 60% payout. This translated to a dividend yield of 7.6% for our shareholders, based on the 2019 year-end share price. Now, moving on to other financial highlights, PLDT invested 72.9 billion pesos in capital expenditures in 2019. This brought total capex for the last 5 years to 257.7 billion pesos. As a result of our multi-year investments, our fixed and mobile networks have been recognized in several third-party surveys as the fastest and the widest in the country. We have over 322,000 kilometers of fiber, the most extensive in the country, as well as a mobile network with 94% coverage for 3G and 4G LTE. Our network investments are supported by a combination of internally generated cash flows as well as external borrowings. As of December 2019, PLDT's net debt stood at $3.3 billion with net debt to EBITDA ratio at 2 times. About 9% of our gross debt is in US dollars with 8% unhedged. Our international credit ratings remain investment grade. For the first quarter of 2020, you can see how our results reflect the momentum from 2019. Our top line remains strong, with consolidated service revenues rising 9% to 41.5 billion pesos. The individual segment continued to lead, the 20% revenue increase year-on-year to 20.2 billion pesos. Enterprise revenues rose 3% to hit the 10 billion peso mark, while our home revenues showed an improving growth trend, climbing from a 3% increase in 2019 to 5% in the first quarter of 2020. EBITDA, on the other hand, registered an 8% growth from previous year to 21.6 billion pesos. Our telco core income was lower by 5% at 6.9 billion pesos in the first quarter, as the rise in EBITDA was offset by higher depreciation and financing costs resulting from higher capital expenditures, the offshoot of our sustained network rollout program. Still, PLDT's core income in Q1 2020 was higher than our average quarterly core income in 2019 of 6.8 billion pesos. Moving on to our latest views on 2020, while our first quarter numbers were very robust, the COVID-19 pandemic has introduced uncertainty for the second quarter, and as such, clouding our view for 2020. While we expect our second quarter revenues to be lower than those of the first quarter due to the ECQ, we anticipate, though, that Q2 revenues will still be higher versus same period last year. We remain committed to serve the growing demand for our services by continuing to invest in our networks, particularly as work-from-home arrangements and other new normal actions fuel demand for our data and broadband services, both fixed and wireless. So while we had planned our 2020 capex spend to be 83 billion pesos, we now expect that 20 to 25% of our original capex would slide into 2021 due to restrictions arising from limited mobility. So while it might be too early to have a clear picture of our 2020 full-year financial results, we believe that PLDT has built a strong foundation from which to grow in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Annabelle. I'd like to call now on our Chief Revenue Officer, Al Panlilio, to do his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to all. As Annabelle mentioned, 2019 was a good year for the company. Service revenues grew to 157.5 billion, up 8% versus previous year. This was mainly driven by a robust wireless business as more customers used more of our data products and experienced the fastest LTE network in the Philippines. Riding on that momentum, we started 2020 strong. However, we soon found out that 2020 was not going to be a normal year. We were confronted by the biggest challenge the generation has ever faced, the COVID-19 pandemic. Social distancing forced us to isolate from one another. Businesses had to close down. Life, as we knew it, changed. As a company, we immediately knew what our initial role would be in the lives of our customers in light of the coronavirus. At the onset of the pandemic, we committed that we will keep you connected. We made this commitment because over the years, we have invested heavily in building the superior network and digital infrastructure powered by fiber in the Philippines. This investment was the backbone of our commitment to our customers. Throughout the ECQ, we saw a rapid adoption of online and digital services such as web-based collaboration tools, video calling, online shopping and payments, online entertainment, e-learning, e-health, and e-security. This led to a spike of 25% in overall data usage in our network. Despite the surge, our services remained fast and reliable because our network was ready and built for situations like this. For wireless, we have the best LTE network in the country, which was recognized by the numerous awards given by third-party analytics firms such as Ookla, Speedtest, and OpenSignal. For home, we have the largest footprint of fiber in the country. This allowed us to provide fast and stable fiber internet to our customers. We also had fixed wireless if fiber is not yet available in their area. Given all this, we were able to sustain that momentum in the first quarter of 2020. Despite the pandemic, our service revenues reached 41.5 billion, 9% up versus the same period last year. As ECQ is lifted and we begin life anew in DCQ, we now need to go beyond keeping our customers connected. Our focus now is helping our customers, communities, and the country get back on their feet and enable their lives in the new normal. For our wireless business, we want our customers to have a giga life, a life that is powered by digital services and solutions that they can pursue their passions and goals. At the beginning of the year, our highly successful Giga Life products already included Giga Video, Giga Stories, Giga Music, and Giga Games. In the face of the pandemic, we quickly built and launched Giga Work, a data pack bundled with allocation for online collaboration tools such as Microsoft Teams and Google Hangouts. The combined Giga services across our wireless brands led to a renaissance in our business. We saw 20% growth in net service revenues for 2019 versus 2018. And in Q1 2020, we maintained that momentum with 20% growth versus the same period last year. Data now contributes 70% of our business, up from 65% in Q1 2019. As we look ahead to 2020, we build on top of the Giga Life platform and move our business forward at even faster pace. In order to do this, we needed to do a lot of soul searching. We needed to rediscover and reignite the soul of the Smart brand. At the end of the day, Smart represents technology, tools that make life easier and simpler. In this complex world, we will endeavor to make it easy and worry-free for you to live an exciting and big Giga life. This is our brand promise. Passions powered by innovation and cutting-edge technology made simple by Smart.
The way you live your life depends on the network you choose. Your movies, music, and games can only be as good as your network's speed and strength. Slow means game over. But the Philippines' fastest mobile data network means game changing. Choose the network that gives you what you truly enjoy. How do you know about this Giga Life? Simple and Smart ako.
Simple, smart ako. That phrase captures our brand essence and ambition to make it as easy and simple for our customers to live their Giga life. We aspire to give our customers the best network, the best services, and the best customer service. To bring this to life, we brought in someone that could breathe a different kind of exciting energy into the campaign. Yoon Bin, of the highest rated series on Netflix, Crash Landing on You. The response to the campaign has been overwhelming.
Smart found a new ambassador to launch the Simple Smart Taho campaign. And it was one of Asia's biggest celebrities, Yoon Bin. This partnership attracted huge attention to Yoon Bin fans. That containing it was a real challenge for Smart. So naturally, we just rode the wave. Social media reached 40 million people in 1 week, with 3.1 million Facebook engagements. When we released the Yoon Bin greeting, love and likes dominate the chart, while the angry reactions subdued. Smart prevailed over competition in online mentions. And we realized we just broke the media values and PR uptakes report. In Smart Marketing PR at 55 million, dethroning Smart Music Live YouTube at 50 million. The Smart Yoon Bin craze was also a hot topic for celebrities and influencers. Smart's presence was also highly visible on print and on the road during the June 1 launch. The numbers of the digital launch were overwhelming. And the numbers kept surprising us. Even our new tagline #SmartAko was well received at 20.8 million impressions. Brand love came naturally. Simple, SmartAko, it was destined to be Giga.
So Smarties, expect to see Captain Ree in the Philippines soon, hopefully not alone. Now moving to our PLDT home business. We saw an overnight transformation of what the home is for a lot of Filipinos. Not only was it where they spend time with their family to rest and bond, it was also now their office and school. To help our customers play, work, and learn from home, we did free speed boosts in cities impacted by the ECQ, offered double data packages for a fixed wireless service, and offered payment options to ensure that everyone will be connected at home throughout the period of the quarantine. On top of this, we have been working hard to ensure that we deliver the service our customers deserve. In the last few months, we've been migrating as many customers as possible to fiber, reaching more homes with postpaid and prepaid fixed wireless, expanding our digital service channels. As we continue to pivot, we just launched our partnership with Grab, the industry leader in logistics and delivery solutions, to get our broadband products and services to the hands of Filipinos faster. Absolutely a game changer. These efforts paved the way for PLDT Home to continue dominating the broadband market as revenues in Q1 2020 grew by 5% versus same period last year. For our enterprise business, the priority was to help our customers fast-track their digital transformation in the light of the ECQ lockdown, as they could no longer rely on what used to work for them. We were well positioned to be their digital partner of choice, as our technology company, PLDT, has already been working on cloud and cybersecurity solutions for various industries, such as banking, education, retail, health, and government. These efforts helped the business grow in Q1 2020 to 10.1 billion, 3% higher than last year. Lastly, for our international business, we continue to manage the long tail amidst the global pandemic. To help overseas Filipinos stay connected, we recently signed a partnership with Orange to be our aggregator for international voice traffic. This will ensure better overall customer experience for Filipinos who rely on voice calls to stay in touch with their families and loved ones at home and abroad. Now, before I end my presentation, I just want to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank all the hardworking frontliners of PLDT and Smart. Maraming salamat po to our engineers, service repair crews, network teams, field sales, customer representatives, and relief operations teams for keeping our customers connected throughout the ECQ. It is because of you that we continue to be of service to millions of Filipinos here and abroad. Thank you for your sacrifice and hard work. PLDT and Smart has been keeping Filipinos connected for over 92 years now. We've been with you through some of the most challenging times of our nation's history. Wars, pandemics, revolutions, and more. As we face the new challenge with COVID-19 and the new normal, I just want to reaffirm our commitment that we will be here for you. We will keep you connected. We will make the complex simple. We will empower you to live your Giga life. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Al, and thank you to Annabelle as well. So moving on to part 3, the final portion of this report. Again, good afternoon to all of you. As Al mentioned, let me first take this moment to thank and pay tribute to all our frontliners, to the men and women of PLDT and Smart who took to the front during the pandemic. Our network field personnel worked round the clock building and repairing our networks. Our sales and distribution walked the extra mile to help millions of our prepaid customers get their load to stay connected. Our home repair installs made new connections and repaired existing ones despite the prevailing travel restrictions. In particular, I'd like to thank Rodson Vicente, who manned our hotline services at PLDT's Sampaloc Exchange. His wife had just given birth before the quarantine was imposed. After spending only a few delightful days with his newborn baby, Rodson volunteered for prolonged lockdown duty in Sampaloc. I thank Rosemary Tirones, customer care leader serving Visayas and Mindanao, who joined the team under lockdown, a decision that made her miss her daughter's 18th birthday. She made that choice because, in her words, there was simply work that had to be done. I thank finally Ramel Minosa, a tower rigger in Cebu for Smart, who was out in the field installing and servicing equipment on our towers, braving the weather and the risks of COVID infection. Ramel said that next to his family, serving as subscribers is important for him. These frontliners have set an infectious and inspiring example for us all. We owe them an inestimable debt of gratitude. They demonstrate two values which define us: service and connectivity. These, in fact, energize our basic purpose, which is to deliver the best customer experience possible. But service and connectivity work best when complemented with the courage of our frontliners. That courage which moves our people to act, even in the teeth of danger. That courage which speaks to us that crisis is neither the time to despair nor the occasion to surrender to the virus. That courage which tells us to move, to restore and rebuild our business and not wait for COVID-19 to disappear. Turning now to 2020, and parts of this were covered by Annabelle, when the pandemic broke loose in the middle of March, our immediate concern focused on our three most important constituents: the health and financial well-being of our employees, continuing connectivity and service excellence to our customers, and assistance to the government and its agencies in addressing the needs of the needy. As to the business, our principal concern was preservation of cash flows to ensure funding of our operating expenses such as salaries and of capital expenditures for continued network build-out. A fortress balance sheet was a paramount goal, and for the meantime, profitability took a back seat. Our revenues in the first 4 weeks of the lockdown, spanning the last half of March and the first half of April, were hardest hit. However, starting the week of Easter Sunday in April, following through the balance of April, then May and onwards to June, we have seen a steady upward march of our revenues, especially in our wireless and home broadband businesses. Accordingly, revenues in April and May this year are already ahead of last year. Given this momentum, it is likely the service revenues for the first 6 months this year will improve over last year's despite the pandemic. Similarly, we expect our first half telco core income to rise above last year's, again, despite the pandemic. I can assure you that there are steady hands on the tiller and the ship itself is sturdy. PLDT is in fact emerging stronger from this pandemic. Sadly, COVID-19 has exposed certain weaknesses in our country which must be addressed if we are to be better prepared for the next crisis. These weaknesses relate to supply chain disruption, deficits in health infrastructure such as contact tracing and tracking, distribution of subsidies under the government's social amelioration program, digitalization of our education and our health areas, food insufficiency, and inadequacies in our logistics. PLDT has put together a digital agenda for recovery and is prepared to work with government to apply the relevant digital solutions. First, a digital map of our national supply chain so we can track the source of raw materials needed for the manufacture of food and pharmaceutical products principally and their destination markets. Mapping the country's logistical infra should be part of this digital supply chain blueprint. Second, a national ID system to enable the government to do contact tracing and tracking during this crisis. This national ID, complemented by existing digital payment gateways, can make the distribution of government cash subsidies more efficient since the funds can be distributed directly to individual recipients. This also enables the private sector to help with funding and subsidies. Third, our enterprise group are part of the technical working group of the Department of Education working on digitalizing the education system. We have recommended to the DOE a broad range of digital solutions from learning management systems to digital infrastructure and connectivities to wireless and fiber plans to digital devices to be placed in the hands of our 1.2 million teachers and 32 million students. We want to ensure that no student besides high-tech greenhouses produce vegetables in the first instance. Later, we're thinking of now close with an attempt to provide you with an outlook for the year 2020. In articulating this outlook, we should simply remind ourselves that COVID-19 is actually the perfect storm. It isn't just a national health crisis. It is also an economic crisis so vast and devastating, with consequences on lives and businesses that have yet to be fully felt. Because of the pandemic scale and We need to allow the blast effect of the pandemic to take its full course before we're able to furnish guidance numbers with some to lend better perspective to the current situation. I'd like to refer to a recent homily made by Father Danny Huang J., the former provincial of the Philippine Jesuit province, now based in Rome, which reads, and I quote, "One concept unhelpful in naming our time is that of liminality, that strange and unsettling time and state, and that space between no longer and not yet. This best behind us, and we standing at the threshold of the future that is fluid and variable. Actually unknown. I guess so-called new normal. This makes our job of telling you what's ahead for the year quite dangerous. I'm reminded
Marami pala tayong matututunan. Nagbago man ang ihip ng hangin, hindi tayo kayang paghiwalayin. Sa panahon ng pag-aalinlangan, ako ang iyong katiyakan. Sa panahon ng karamdaman, mas mararamdaman mo kami. Hindi lang para sa atin, maging para sa iba. Dahil magkakarugtong ang buhay at kabuhayan natin sa kanila. Sa bagong ngayon, may pagkakataon. Na makabawi at makabangon. Katuwang mo na kami mula noon. Gagapay mo pa rin sa pagbabago ng ngayon.
Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda today is the approval of the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ended 31st December 2019, contained in the company's 2019 annual report. Madam Secretary, may we please have the voting results?
Mr. Chairman, at least 317,716,431 shares, or 86.79% of the total outstanding voting shares, have been voted in favor of the approval of the company's audited financial statements for the fiscal year ended December 31, 2019. This is more than the majority votes required for the approval of this corporate action. A breakdown of the for, against, and abstain votes with respect to this item of the agenda will be set out in the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Having obtained the required votes, the company's audited financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2019 are hereby approved. Item 5 is the election of 13 directors, including 3 independent directors. The Secretary of the meeting will please announce the nominees.
Mr. Chairman, Persons nominated for the election of directors for the ensuing year are Mr. Manuel V. Pangilinan, Mr. Manuel L. Argel Jr., Ms. Helen D., Attorney Ray C. Espinosa, Mr. James Go, Mr. Shigeki Hayashi, Mr. Junichi Igarashi, Ambassador Albert F. Del Rosario, Attorney Maria Lourdes C. Rausa Chan, and Ms. Marife B. Zamora. And the persons nominated for election as independent directors are retired Chief Justice Artemio V. Panganiban, Mr. Pedro E. Rojas, and Mr. Bernido H. Liu. The background information of each of the nominated is contained in the information statement that is posted in the company's website.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. For the information of the stockholders, the Governance and Nomination Committee of your board, or the GNC, which is chaired by myself and composed of 4 other voting members, namely Director Igarashi and independent directors retired Chief Justice Panganiban, Mr. Rojas, and Mr. Liu, has reviewed and evaluated the background information of the nominees. The GNC has determined that A, each of the nominees possesses all the qualifications and has none of the disqualifications for directorship, and B, each of the independent director nominees meets the independence criteria provided under the revised Corporation Code, Securities Regulation Code, and the company's bylaws and corporate governance manual. None of the independent director nominees is involved in the company's management or has any business or other relationships which could or could be reasonably perceived to materially interfere with the exercise of independent judgment in carrying out the responsibilities of an independent director. Upon election of the 3 independent director nominees, the requirement that at least 20% of the members of the board must be independent directors will be met. Pursuant to the company's board diversity policy, the GNC also considered that the nominees have the appropriate mix and complementation of knowledge, skills, educational and professional background, and business experience. 3 nominees are female, and there is a combination of 3 independent, 8 non-executive, and 2 executive director nominees. This diversity is deemed important to have an optimally performing board, which is essential for the attainment of the company's strategic objectives and sustainable development. Madam Secretary, may we please have the voting results?
Mr. Chairman, each nominee received the votes of more than a majority of the outstanding shares of common and voting preferred stocks entitled to vote. Since there are only 13 board seats and there are only 13 nominees qualified to be directors, including the 3 who are qualified to be independent directors, all of the nominees should be declared elected as directors, with retired Chief Justice Artemio V. Panganiban, Mr. Pedro E. Rojas, and Mr. Bernido H. Liu as independent directors. The breakdown of the for and abstain votes will be set out in the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The Chair declares the election of the 13 nominees as directors. Starting with our independent directors, retired Chief Justice Artemio Panganiban, Mr. Pedro Rojas, and Mr. Bernido Liu as independent directors. Retired Judge Manuel Angel Jr., Ms. Helen D., Attorney Ray Espinosa, Mr. James Go, Mr. Shigeki Hayashi, Mr. Junichi Igarashi, Ambassador Albert Del Rosario, Attorney Maria Lourdes Rausa Chan, and Ms. Marife Zamora. I would also like to advise that at the organization meeting of our newly elected board, the following shall be appointed members of the advisory board: Mr. Oscar Reyes, Ambassador Roberto Romulo, Mr. Benny Santoso, Mr. Orlando Vea, and Mr. Christopher Young. Item 6 on the agenda is the approval of the proposed amendment of the second article of the amended Articles of Incorporation. Our Chief Legal Counsel will please explain the proposal.
Mr. Chairman, the proposed amendment of the second article of the amended Articles of Incorporation is shown in the slide before you, and it involves the amendment of the primary purpose clause to, number one, reflect the current focus of PLDT's business, which is the provision of telecommunications services through trending and constantly evolving technologies and innovative products and services. And second, allow sufficient flexibility to the PLDT business units to design their operations and expand their scope by constantly transforming PLDT from being the country's leading telecommunications company to a dynamic and customer-centric multimedia organization. The amended second article of the amended Articles of Incorporation is set forth on pages 37 and 38 of the information statement and shown on the screen. Our Board of Directors approved the proposed amendment on April 8, 2020, and recommends approval thereof by our stockholders.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Can we please have the voting results?
Mr. Chairman, at least 2/3 of the outstanding shares consisting of common, voting preferred, and non-voting serial preferred stocks entitled to vote have been voted in favor of the approval of the amendment of the second article of the amended Articles of Incorporation of the company. This meets the voting requirement for the amendment of the Articles of Incorporation, set out in Section 15 of the Revised Corporation Code. The breakdown of the for, against, and abstain votes will be set out in the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Having obtained the required votes, the amendment of the second article of the amended Articles of Incorporation of the company is hereby approved. As I mentioned earlier, we will at this time address the questions you have submitted prior to today's meeting, as well as the questions received from you in the course of this meeting. Our moderator for this Q&A portion will be Mon Isberto. Mon, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, before we proceed to the Q&A section, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce the SGV representatives who have joined us here at this stockholders meeting. May I please call on Mr. Wilson P. Tan, the SGV Country Managing Partner. Good afternoon, sir. Mr. Juan Miguel Machuca, Lead Senior Manager for the PLDT Group. Meredith Miguel, Lead Audit Partner for the PLDT Group. Good afternoon. And finally, Sherwin Yason, Audit Partner for the PLDT Group. And good afternoon. Now let's proceed to some of the questions that have been emailed so far. These questions are actually reactions to some of the points of the presentation during the President's report. The first one, there was mentioned during the President's report that the PLDT network services have managed to cope with increased demand. But with more and more people using data services, even beyond possibly the COVID period, will PLDT's networks be able to handle this constantly growing traffic? Mr. Chairman?
My colleagues can add, but I think the network has performed very well in the course of this pandemic. Even at the very start, we noticed and we expected that internet traffic would increase dramatically. And I think at the outset, our network head, Yorn, has raised international connectivity by a factor of 25%. So that was done at the very first instance, at the onset of the quarantine. And also, when the quarantine was imposed, we began to note that the traffic was still high in the urban areas. They've started to move out to the suburban areas. And so I think there were pockets where we needed to increase capacity of the access network on our wireless bit and on the wireless side. And we've done that. I think, as I noted earlier, our Frontliners continued to the build out of the network, particularly in areas where demand has spiked up and we needed to increase our capacity. So,
Do you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I guess I said earlier, 25% growth in traffic. And I think the best test for that, the stress test for that was during the lockdown. And I think we passed with flying colors. I think we still had good customer experience. And again, kudos to the network team for making that happen. And also the investments that have been made by the company in the last few years. So, we've been very happy with the performance. Now that GCQ, normal traffic is going back to CBD, where initially our network was. So we're expecting even experiences in the homes to be much better.
Here's a kind of a follow-up question on that first point. All operators are now rushing to meet the demand for internet services. How does PLDT fare in this market of heightened competition?
actually, I don't know whether there was heightened competition during the pandemic. Uh, well, we just actually we just focused on what our customers needed, the existing customers, what they needed in terms of connectivity, and I think we managed to grow our subscriber base also during this pandemic. So, it's a tribute to the men and women of PLDT who managed to keep the network going, keep people connected, and at the same time drive the revenues and the business higher. So that's why we're probably one of the few companies in the Philippines who enjoyed growth in revenues during this pandemic.
Any further?
I think the fact that we are an integrated service provider with a strong presence in both fixed and mobile played out well during this particular period, serving the diverse needs of our customer base. We also had just finished upgrading and transforming our transport network for a total modernization program. So it was also quite timely that that expansion initiative had just completed just in time also for the increase in usage that we saw during this period. So a lot of the investments we made in the past to ensure a robust network that caters to the growing demand for data has served us well during this period.
Yes.
Yes, one is to add also to the point of the chairman. I think we remain relevant to our customers. I think all three segments showed growth because we were focused on what they needed, and we remain relevant to their requirements. So we're very active and very agile in terms of what they needed.
Okay, this next question comes from a stockholder who apparently is also a parent. What is PLDT doing to help schools reopen? I mean, there was mention of that in the report, Mr. Chairman.
I think it is a cause of concern for us because, again, I think the president has said that he would not like to see schools open while no vaccine has been found for the pandemic. And I think just this morning we received word that the Department of Education is likely not to open schools following the president's express wish. So that means that education, if we don't do something about it, will get delayed. And I think that's something that we should attempt to help out. And as I said in my report, I think our enterprise business during this pandemic has been very active in dialoguing with the Department of Education to see how we can help effectively e-learning because we cannot allow this virus to take hold of our life and drive it. So I think we actually had an online chat with the Department of Education Secretary Briones, and 2 or 3 of her undersecretaries. And I think the agenda with her was more specific. And so now it's a question really of how we execute. And time is of the essence because if indeed online classes, digital classes were to start, say end of August or even September, we have to be ready for that. The network, the learning platforms, the connectivities, and most importantly are the devices in the hands of both the teachers and the students, particularly the public school students. So it's important for us that we do not leave anybody behind in this educational process. It would be sad if some of them, most of them, are left out of school because of this pandemic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here's a broader question that's come in. There's been such a shift to digital services during the lockdown period. But what do you see down the road? Will people go back to their old habits, or will these digital practices and habits take hold? How much of the new normal will really be so digital? That's a philosophical question, Mr. Chairman.
It is. So may it rain at the level of philosophy, right? I don't know. Nobody really knows. I think there will certainly be changes in the way we live and we work. No? And clearly, you're seeing the shift in digital. If anything, people, when they stayed home for the better part of the last 3 months or so, that's when Crash Landing on You became number one on Netflix. And there you have it. You have human being endorsing smart, right? So we have this COVID-19 to thank for. So it's tough to say, but we should be ready. All we're saying is that we will help out in the matter of digitalizing what needs to be digitalized. No, education, the delivery of health services. I think the virus has exposed weaknesses in the way we live and we work, no? Including ourselves. Like, for example, the fact that people have gone home, it became clear based on the data traffic monitoring that certain areas our access network needs a bit of help, and so those deficiencies were immediately addressed. So yeah, it's I do hope the change should be for the better for this country, and we worry as well about the food and the food security and the logistics in terms of moving the food from the food producing areas of this country to the relevant markets. So quite a bit to be addressed. Last night lang we were in digital conversation government on contact tracing. So yun, isa pa rin sitwasyon na kailangan natin
Is PLDT and Smart still going to pursue 5G?
Yes. I think it will be delayed. I think we expect to launch 5G sometime middle of this year, pre-COVID. But I think it will be launched. We will start working on it this time. I think the best time might be the fourth quarter this year. No? So, some questions have been raised with us as to why our capex will drop by around 20% or so for the year. It's not by choice. It's just that because of travel restrictions and everything else, and safety and health of our employees, that our ability to continue our network build out was curtailed. So, but I think we will accelerate the build out so that we wanted to expand and future proof our network moving forward.
Unless I get another question here, this is the last question, Mr. Chairman. There are fears that the COVID pandemic will not go away quickly. It will stay with us for a while. How is PLDT preparing for such a scenario in terms of the working arrangements, in terms of delivering services to customers? It's another philosophical question, Mr. Chairman.
Well, it won't go away just because we pray that it goes away. I actually saw a chart by CNN on there are quite a number of companies countries all over the world that have created teams to address, to develop the vaccine that will eventually address this pandemic. No? And you know, knowing how man operates, I think eventually we will find one. I think it's just a question of when, not a question of if. In the meantime, well, my view is that that it's important that we those employees who can discharge their responsibilities and duties to the company, if they can work from home, they should work from home. Uh, because their welfare is important to us as well. But those that are needed in the field and in the office, that we probably will have to recall them, provided that we supply them with the relevant protective devices that they need to be able to do the work. I think a number of employees have started to stream back to our offices, and you could see that desks are already they put up these perspex barriers, and looks like everybody has his own jail cell at the office. So feels a little strange.
Ang tawag dun sa Mr. Chairman, kubul. Parang may kubul lahat yung mga kusina natin. Okay, I think.
But even our boardroom, before COVID, we were redoing a boardroom. We were enlarging it to accommodate because we now have joint meetings of the board, right? And so we started the work, then we stopped obviously because of this quarantine, and then but now with social distancing a must, we have to rethink. There was a design for a very large table to accommodate more than 20 of our directors of PLDT and Smart. Now we cannot have that table because it will not accommodate all of the directors with social distancing. So we have to rethink. And the best design I've seen so far is a classroom design.
Classroom, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, it is. It is a very nice chair with a top. Yeah, that has casters, so you can move about and it can swivel. So at least if you want to talk amongst yourselves, you can talk amongst yourselves. So back to the classroom.
Yeah, we were talking about classes earlier. Anyway, I think, Mr. Chairman, that's the last question I have here in my list. So, okay, that is it for the Q&A portion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mon. Thank you. Thank you to our stockholders for their questions. Madam Secretary, do we have any other matters for information to stockholders or for discussion in this meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to inform our shareholders that under our bylaws, it is the Audit Committee that has the power to appoint the company's external auditors. On May 6, 2020, our Audit Committee, composed entirely of independent directors, namely Mr. Rojas as Chairman, retired Chief Justice Panganiban, and Mr. Liu, appointed Sisip Gores and Belay and Company, or SGV, to audit our financial statements for the year 2020. In their meeting held on May 7, 2020, our Board of Directors confirmed such appointment of SGV.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Do we have any other matters to take up?
Mr. Chairman, based on the agenda, there are no other items to consider in this meeting.
There being no other matters to consider, the 68th Annual Stockholders Meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you for joining us today. I do hope to see all of you in our meeting next year and in person, hopefully, vaccine permitting. So stay safe and stay well. Thank you.